Hi everyone. I'm going to give people a minute or so just to get started and get logged in. I'm glad to see so many people coming in to talk about mental health. Okay, so while people are getting together, I'll do a little intro on myself and then we will talk about some mental health tips. So, my name is Danielle. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I graduated from UMass Amherst with a degree in psychology and then went on to get my master's in social work at the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College. After that, I spent 4 years supporting New York City students and families in schools through direct counseling, advocacy, and case management. And now I'm at Headway on the operations team, hoping to make a larger impact on providing access to affordable and quality mental health care. So some other fun facts about me are I love running. I'm a dog and animal obsessed, and chocolate covered pretzels are my favorite late night snack. So moving into what we'll be talking about, mental health, which is of course extremely important. So I'm so glad that Built by Girls is hosting this live talk. So I'll start off by covering some tips for managing back to school stress. And this topic is very important to me because I'll never forget when I graduated college, one of the other people on their cap had "Be Who You Needed When You Were a Kid." And from that, that was kind of my motto all through school and after school. I wanted to be that person for kids because growing up, I wanted to find that person myself that I could be my own person with. So I was able to be that for some students and families. So that was a really great time. So I'm glad that I am covering this topic today. And so I will start with my tips now, and then I'll leave 10 minutes at the end for any questions. So feel free to write them as we go. And then I'll just scroll back and answer any questions that come in. So 5 tips for managing back to school stress. The first one I would say is keeping a schedule and sticking to it. It's so easy right now with the lack of structure that is happening in the world to also fall into that. But having an expected routine is super important and it helps with the mind and body stress. So I know some programs are doing hybrid where you're going in, some are staying completely online. So if you're going in and you keep a bag with you, bring a fun planner, make it all things you, decorate it, make it your go-to thing. If you prefer phones, Google Calendar is amazing. You can set different colors, alarms for different things. You can set reminders for assignments. I love Google Calendar. I use it. My calendar is very color coordinated with some pastel colors because those are my favorite. And then also with the schedule and the routine, stick to what you would do normally outside of what's happening right now. So for me, I would usually commute to work, and every morning before I sit down in front of my laptop, I go in and I take a walk outside. Sometimes I'll go for a run. So make sure that you're still doing those commutings. And then after work too, after I close my laptop, I'll take a step outside, walk around, and then come back in home for dinner and watching some TV. Tip number 2, I would say drink water. Studies have shown that lack of water causes dehydration, mental, and eye fatigue. So especially now, since we're on screen so much, make sure that you're keeping track of your water intake. It could be fun to do a gallon a day challenge with some friends. For me, I have a couple of different water bottles that are all decorated with things I love. For some reason, I can actually drink way more water out of like a reusable water bottle than a regular water bottle. So that's what works for me, but find what works for you. The third tip I would say is this is an important one too, finding a coping mechanism that works for you when you're stressed. So there are a ton of different coping mechanisms out there. One of the biggest ones is probably the deep breaths, but you want to find what works for you. So for me, with deep breaths, 5 is the magic number. And there is this breathing technique called 5-finger breathing. And you go up and down your fingers. So when you're going up your thumb, you breathe in. When you go down your thumb, you breathe out. And you do that 5 times. And it's something simple that you can do. You can do it under your desk if you're at school. You can do it outside of the screen if you don't want to show anyone. But the 5-finger breathing is my go-to. I love it. I tell everyone about it. But maybe deep breaths aren't for you. Maybe it's splashing some water on your face, going for a short walk, listening to a specific song. I'm also someone who's very mood music. So if you know certain songs that you like, certain songs that calm you down, certain songs that get you excited if you're feeling tired, listening to music is also a great way to de-stress. So the 4th one I would say is creating a list of what you can control and what you can't. So this one is really important for me too, because sometimes you get hung up on the things that you can't control and that stresses you out even more. So creating a list of what you can control and what you can't. And then from that list of what you can control, create plans to start tackling them. So if that's assignments that need to get done, break those assignments down and make it small, little, simple steps. This way, when you finish one step, you reward yourself after that with whatever you want, a piece of chocolate, maybe 10 minutes listening to a podcast, again, whatever works for you. But make sure you're giving yourself those small rewards for those accomplishments, and taking care of what you can control and leaving what you can't control out of your mind. And then the last one is self-care. So self-care I saved it for last because it's definitely the most important one. You want to bring your best self every day, and the only way you can do that is if you're taking care of yourself. So there are different types of self-care. There's physical, mental, emotional, and relationship. So the thing about when you're thinking about what you want to do for self-care, it should be something that's free and easily accessible to you, because as much as for me, as much as I love getting my nails done, that's not something that can be self-care because it's expensive and I can't do it every time I'm stressed. So maybe it's taking care of yourself physically. It's eating healthy, getting enough sleep, getting enough water. For mental self-care, maybe taking a mental health day, taking time to detach from your electronics, spend time meditating. For emotional self-care, maybe that's watching comedies. For me, it's rom-coms. I am very, very into rom-coms when I'm stressed. It's just a way to detach my mind. And then the last one is also relationship self-care. Make sure that you're spending time with your family, your friends, connecting over Zoom whenever you can. So those are the different areas of self-care that you want to make sure you're always thinking of at this time. So those are my 5 tips. I know that there was a question that came in yesterday, so I'll start with that, and I'll start scrolling through to see if we have any other questions. So the question that came in yesterday was how to manage stress-related productivity, especially at this time with online classes and self-study. So when you look far ahead, when you're thinking about the unknown, that can be very overwhelming. So you want to, again, that's where this thinking of what you can control and what you can't, and the scheduling comes into play. So think about the things with your online classes that you can control. So create your schedule. You get your syllabus or your assignments in advance. Make sure that you're plugging them into your calendar in advance. What I used to do, if I had a big paper, I would break it up in pages and write a page a day or 2 pages every other day. I found that super helpful. This way I'm not cramming at the last minute. I didn't have to worry about staying up late to finish something because I am not a late person. So breaking it up breaking up your school studies that way. And then again with the routine for self-study, make sure that you're breaking up your day to have time for your online classes and your extra studying that you need to do, and then also time dedicated for yourself. So in your schedule, make sure that you're giving yourself every hour or so a 5 or 10 minute break, whatever you need to take care of yourself. Because again, that comes back to the self-care. To make sure that the rest of your day and your week goes smooth, you want to give yourself that time to focus on yourself. So make sure that that's in your schedule. This way you stick to it and you follow it every day, and eventually it becomes a routine. So let's see if there are any other questions. Do you have any tips to avoid burning out? So that's a great question. It happens way too often, especially now. There are so many things that can cause quick burnout. But again, this is where your self-care routine is super, super important. If there's a routine that you work every day or every week, maybe it's not. So like for me, I love running, but some days I wake up tired and I don't want to run. So I don't force my body to do that. I'll find something else to self-care. So instead of, I know I'm talking about schedules, but if your body is telling you something different or your mind's telling you something different that day, and instead of, like for me, instead of running, maybe in the morning I spend some time listening to a podcast, that's what I needed that day, and that's what helped me do what, get done what I need to get done and bring my best self to work. So listen to yourself, listen to your body, take breaks. It's okay to take breaks. Be honest with other people. If you need support in something, ask for support. There are tons of ways to get support, especially now online. You can connect with your friends online. You can connect with, I know if there's any like teachers or something, I'm sure if you needed support, they would find extra time to support you. So the best way to avoid burnout is just be honest with yourself and find your support network to lean on when you need more support. Great question. So I also brought some stuff myself to talk about. So I'll move on to my next topic. And again, if anyone has any questions that come up, just feel free to pop them in. Okay, so somebody wrote, lots of people talk about self-care, but how do you identify what actions are best for self-care practices? So this is where self-care is fun, because there are so many different things that people can do for self-care. There are some people who enjoy spending 5 minutes playing video games. There are people who enjoy exercises, people who enjoy yoga, meditation, coloring. What are some other ones if people want to throw in what they do? There's pretty much anything that makes you feel good, anything that makes you feel calm, anything that is free, and anything that really I say it makes your heart happy. That's the best way to find your self-care routine. And the important thing to note too is your self-care routine is something that you want to find before you get to that stressful moment, because when you're in that moment of stress, it's hard for you to think about an action step. It's easier to just sit in that stress. So having that plan before you start to stress out is really important. This way you know your 3 things that you can do. So that is my advice on self-care. And then another question about how do we remove the stigma talking about mental health at work or in the classroom? So the mental health stigma is one of the biggest fights that we are fighting today. 1 in 4 people have a mental health illness. So people have been doing this for years, and we're now starting to see small changes, but it's a really big problem. So some people aren't ready for it too, and that's just something that we have to accept, but you shouldn't feel people shouldn't feel ashamed by it. One of my professors said going to therapy should be the same as someone going to get their yearly checkup, and hopefully one day that does exist. But for right now, we can do what we can. So find 2 to 3 people you trust. Make sure you know your mental health professional in your school. Talk about it with people that will validate your feelings. You can find your support network with people who are also trying to fight this stigma. But there are also tons of organizations that are doing online events if you want to get involved, or doing more talks like I am. There are tons of things that you can do individually if you want to join in the fight to fight the mental health stigma. And let's see. Any other questions coming in? Here we go. Tips on how to maintain boundaries at home with parents/siblings with classes being more remote. This is a really great question. This is something new that everyone's experiencing. So parents, siblings might not know what's working best for you while you're trying to figure out the best way to do your online learning. So something that's important to do is have these tough conversations. So if parents are talking and it's hard for you to focus, or your siblings keep coming in your room when you're taking a class, whatever it is, make sure that you have a dedicated set time to talk to your parents or your siblings about your needs and what's working for you and what's not working for you. Because everyone in your home is going to be focusing on, I'm sure everyone in your home is affected by this change, and everyone's trying to figure out how to move on and do it best. So if it's a conversation that is going to be challenging, set time, maybe tell your parents or your siblings, hey, after dinner, can we talk about learning this year and what it's going to look like? I think this works best for me. Can we work on changing what's been happening? This way I can better focus on my studies, focus on my success, whatever is best for you. But definitely let your family know that this is an important conversation for you and it's something that you really want to focus on. And then just be honest, use I statements. I statements are always the best. So not blaming, not being like, you're being too loud, but I really need it to be quiet so I can focus on my learning. Is there a space that's better for me to sit? Is there a space that's better for you? And really just listening and hearing each other and being honest about what you need. Somebody also shared a great resource. It's called Girls Inc. of New York City, and they said that they have a wonderful mind and body program. So definitely check them out. Like I said, there are tons of these resources around. If you do your searching on Instagram, ask your friends, Facebook, there are tons of organizations that are great. I'm also going to be sharing out some resources after this, so you can be on the lookout for those. And if anyone has any more resources, feel free to share them in and I'll share them out with everyone. Any other questions coming in? Let's see. So if people want to share, one of the earlier questions was asking about the different things you can do for self-care, and the best way to hear about that is to listen to what everyone else does for self-care. So if people want to share in the chat some of the things that they do for self-care, I'll share them out for some inspiration for some of the other people joining the call. And I'll try to list some unique ones of my own if I can think of any. So let's see, some self-care options. We talked about watching a rom-com. We talked about focusing on your connections. We talked about mental health and engaging your body in a fun hobby gardening, cooking, sporting. A lot of people are doing cooking right now. I have personally always loved cooking, so that is a big thing for me. Some people are writing in they do long walks around the neighborhood, watercoloring, love that, journaling or free writing, masks every Friday. That is a great one. Making way too much bread. Yeah. That's a new one for people, I think. That's great. So there was another question that came in. How do you balance supporting family, friends, and coworkers in these tough times while also taking care of yourself? And that is a great question. So I talked earlier about finding your support network. So you want to have your supports, you want to know who your supporters are, and then also who's leaning on you for a support. So that'll help in the balance, because there might be someone in your family who's leaning on you for support, but your support network might actually be a close friend. So it's thinking about who you're supporting and who's supporting you, knowing that the people who are supporting you are going to be there on your bad days and their bad days, and knowing that the people who you're supporting are asking you to be there on their bad days and their good days. So sometimes having check-ins. So with friends that I don't see as often anymore, we have our weekly check-ins. So it's like a dedicated time for us to get together and talk about what's been on our mind, anything that we're struggling with or asking for support with. That hour a week is dedicated for us to talk to each other, vent to each other, and ask for support. So having set time for when you're going to have like these conversations to vent or chat, this way you know that you're also, because people are working and doing schoolwork all day, so you also want to make sure that you're catching them at a good time and they're able to catch you at a good time. So that kind of having a set kind of like chat every week allows you to balance getting your work done and also knowing that you're giving people the time that they need and time that you need to talk about anything that's going on or anything that's bothering you. Question here, what are ways to get affordable professional therapy? So that's a great question. The company that I work at, that's actually our goal on Headway. We partner people with therapists or prescribers if they need, and we work in network with insurances, but there are also a ton of other resources out there. So in my resource guide that I'll send a couple of different options. This is something that there are a ton of different options out there. It's just hard to find them. So I definitely recommend looking at this resource guide. And then the other option is just like doing a hard Google search. Also asking your networks, honestly, like asking your networks on Facebook or Instagram. There are a lot of people who know certain different places you can go. So always sharing your resources that you find or looking for resources that other people share is a great way to find affordable professional therapy. So self-care. Somebody said that self-care is feeling well rested, which is definitely one of the physical sections of self-care. You want to make sure that you're getting you should be getting at least 8 hours of sleep a night. So feeling well rested and taking naps is definitely a great self-care option. I know for me, when I don't get enough sleep, my body shuts down. So it's definitely sleep and water are two very important things. Taking care of your body is just important as taking care of your mind. So make sure that you are getting your body everything that it needs to function. This way it can also support your mind and any physical activities you're doing. So I'll also share some other self-care stuff. There are long bubble baths with candles and soothing music. That sounds delightful. Let's see. Aw. Someone recently adopted a cat who gives them the space to be a nurturing pet mom. They're also taking better care of themselves by taking care of the cat, which is great. Honestly, I feel like sometimes having an animal is also a way to like set a schedule, and remembering like having to take care of them also reminds us that we got to take care of ourselves. So I love that. Like I said, I'm a big animal person. I cannot wait to be my own dog mom soon. So looking forward to that. So I know we only have like a few minutes left. Any other last questions before we log out for the day? Somebody said 8 hours of sleep is the dream. That is the dream, but I am in bed by 9:30 every night. I make it a point because otherwise I will not function. All right, if there are no other immediate questions, we'll wrap up. Like I said, I'll be sharing out some resources with the Built by Girls team, so definitely be on the lookout for those. I also wanted to thank everyone who joined today, everyone who asked their questions and shared their self-care tips to the larger group. Always great to get new ideas. And if anybody is looking for my email, I'll make sure that that is also included in the resources guide. Always happy to help. And for our last final question, someone wrote in, any tips for being less anxious to return to school or not return to school as it were? And again, that's definitely, it's hard to think about all of the things that are coming, but you want to have your routine, make your list of what you can control, what you can't, make sure you have a plan for the things you can't. It will definitely help bring down some of your anxiety, knowing that you have a plan to get these things done. So again, I just wanted to thank the Built by Girls team and everyone for coming. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Get that sleep and drink that water. And I will be in touch with everyone soon. Have a great day. Bye, guys.